Saulat Mirza was convicted in a triple murder 17 years ago. The trial was validated by the highest courts of the country. But throughout the trial and its appeals process, Saulat Mirza never accused anyone, nor did he ever admit his own guilt. However, the confessional video of Saulat Mirza includes a series of accusations not only on MQM, but also the highest echelons of its leadership. In this report, The Real Talk will disassemble the entire video and examine the technical aspects of its production and the transcript. The confessional video of Saulat Mirza was leaked to the news media of Pakistan only a day before the execution of his death sentence. The video sent all the TV channels into a frenzy. The president of the country ordered to hold back Saulat Mirza's execution only 5 hours before what would have been a punishment by hanging till death. It is a move that is illegal by the law, but regardless of that, the hanging was postponed, first for 72 hours and then for 30 days. Everyone had something to say, especially after a much dramatic event just a few days earlier when a paramilitary force known as the Rangers had stormed into the neighborhood of where the headquarters of MQM is located, along with the house of its leader, which is also in the same block. One activist of MQM was shot and killed by the Rangers when there was no resistance by the MQM, according to the Rangers' own admission. Many rival political parties of MQM and news analysts on TV began to make the contents of Saulat Mirza's confessional video a reason to impugn and incriminate the MQM and its leadership. This is when Saulat Mirza's case and conviction both had nothing to do with either MQM or any of its members. What exactly is in this video that is so powerful that it can unmake the entire MQM as we know it? Saulat Mirza's confessional video is primarily a leaked video. No one knows where it came from or how it was made, especially only a few hours before the execution of his death sentence. What we do know is that it was made after Saulat Mirza was served with his last visitation rites and met with his family. The speculations imply that the video was made during that last visit where a family member made this video and leaked it to the media. Let's examine the video and look at the clues to identify what production resources were involved in the making of this video. It is difficult to say how many cameras were involved in the shooting of this video. The beginning of the video has Mr. Saulat Mirza in one angle until after a cut where we see him in a different angle. Besides this, there is another picture circulating on the internet that shows him in an entirely different angle. Before counting the cameras, what those two angles indicate more clearly is the nature of the camera involved. Based on these two angles, it is much possible for these cameras to be DSLR. The lenses attached to average cameras on a cell phones do not have any zooming capabilities. These cameras depend on digital enlargement of the image to imitate zooming. A single lens reflex cameras, commonly known as SLR, bend the light to zoom in or zoom out of an image. This distorts the image in a very peculiar way. A shorter lens elongates the subject because the depth of field increases, therefore you see a longer nose and a slimmer face. On the opposite end, a longer lens will make a person chubbier because it decreases the depth of field. This is why people say camera adds a few pounds. The difference may be subtle in Saulat Mirza's case, but certainly present. There are two possible DSLR cameras that could be involved. One option is a conventional DSLR still photography cameras that can capture pretty decent video but can cause difficulty in sound capture. The other option is a DSLR video camera that are very common among field reporters because they are better equipped for sound. Regardless of which of these two cameras are used, the tremendous stability of the image suggests that it has to be mounted on a tripod. It is impossible to take this discussion any further without discussing the lighting in this video. Mr. Saulat Mirza is clearly lit by a spotlight pointing directly at his forehead. Our confidence on this claim comes from the fallout of that spotlight onto the wall as it dissipates, along with the shadows casted by Mr. Saulat Mirza, which are all behind him. These shadows can clue us into where the spotlight may have been placed. Although there may be a general light source in the room, like a house bulb, but there is a spotlight lighting Mr. Saulat Mirza that is higher than him but not too high. All his shadows are behind him but slightly downwards. The shadows of his collars and the folds of his jackets are beneath them. The shadow of the elbow is also slightly lower but behind the elbow on the wall. The slight glare of that spotlight is visible on the nose, at least in the beginning of the video. Let's expand this image and analyze it in 3 dimensions. A camera mounted on a tripod. It was placed directly in front of Mr. Saulat Mirza at first, but soon moved to a bit to the side, and that is where it remains for the rest of the video. The spotlight is right in front of him but pointing down from a higher angle. It was moved with the camera since the shadow remains behind him in the second part of the video as well. The light source could be mounted on top of the camera, but there is only one issue with that assumption. When light is shined directly onto a subject, it creates a glare and a harsh shadow behind it. This is called specular light. But if you block it with something semi-transparent, the light gets diffused, the glare gets softer, and so does the shadow. Although, in the beginning there was a diffused one, but otherwise Saulat Mirza has no glare on his face and shadows are not very harsh. That means the spotlight has something in front of it that is diffusing the light. Majority of the time, videographers use either a softbox or an umbrella for that kind of diffusion. For this reason, it is comfortable to imagine a large surface in front of the light. Therefore, the light cannot be mounted on top of the camera. It has to be on a tripod. One last point about the light that is to be noted is a very curious glare that travels across the frame. This kind of a glare is often by something very shiny reflecting the light off of its surface. Whatever the activity is going on behind the camera, it certainly involves a very shiny object getting waved and reflecting the light from behind the diffusing surface. This brings us to how many individuals are in this room. The clue for that is in the eyes of Mr. Saulat Mirza. All the directions that he looks at during the interview can be imagined as a person. There is one person sitting next to him to his left side is the only other individual that is visible in this video. This is a person who is holding the microphone and is often seen giving some sort of directions. Mr. Saulat Mirza looks at the camera fewer times compared to slightly to the side of it throughout the interview. This could be the camera person, but for the most part this individual is on the receiving end of Saulat Mirza's speech. This would be the second person off screen in this video. The third person is someone who is standing in front of Mr. Saulat Mirza but slightly on the right side. Saulat Mirza has to look up for an eye contact with this individual. The fourth person is someone behind the cameraman. The flying glare can be attributed to this person and also the picture that is circulating on internet from the same video. The third and fourth could be the same person if they are pacing back and forth, but the assumption is difficult because we would have seen Mr. Saulat Mirza panning his gaze or some indication to that effect, which we don't. The most peculiar spot that Mr. Saulat Mirza looks at is the lower front, which would be the lower front of the person right in front of Saulat Mirza as well, the cameraman. The format of this confessional video is not much different than the interview he recorded almost 17 years ago. In that video, some papers are visible right in front of a younger Saulat Mirza that he keeps looking at during the interview, until the papers are removed from in front of him to under the camera where his gaze keeps following it. It is not completely out of the realm of possibilities that Mr. Saulat Mirza is reading some pointers off of some material placed under the camera. It is rather safe to assume after examining this video that during its recording there were about 4 or 3 individuals in the room with him. Along with them there was one camera on tripod and possibly another in someone's hands, a spotlight with some diffusing material like softbox or an umbrella, a microphone, and possibly some reading material. This is a serious production that may have been done quickly, but by those who knew what they were doing. They knew how to direct, and they knew how to keep the conversation on topic. In our next report, we will examine the transcript of this video through its content.